real hospitable, but these are the only little cups I have.
Oh, that's fine.
So I'm putting them there, okay?
Is it, if we were gonna have some papers or something, we shouldn't put them here probably,
Oh, that's
right?
okay,
It doesn't matter?
right.
Oh,
It's fine, but I could get you another table.
no, you
Make it
don't
more
need to, I
convenient.
just know whether I should put them on there. We don't want to be disrespectful.
But thank you for asking.
It is the altar, after all.
But we're not quite sure it has relics in it. Everything, you know, this building was erected as the temporary structure to house St. Truth's Parish when it was first erected, as they say, back in 1926.
Erupted?
Erected.
Erected, oh.
You erect the parish, you say. So in 1926, this building was kind of the template for any new parish. And then as the parish accumulated resources and they built a more permanent
Structure.
brick and mortar. But this community kind of never went in that direction. Legend has it they lent money out with like mission projects and things. And then they did build the school and they built the rectory. By that time,
Hello,
sort of the
hello.
spirituality of St. Teresa, the little flower, simplicity, doing ordinary things, and stuff. Kind of had really taken hold, and so everyone loved the simplicity of the building. So they never spent money on stuff. So we believe that money is hidden somewhere. The money is somewhere.
It didn't go to a socially responsible investment, but it did go to projects in the community. Mission, yeah.
We have a handheld mic. We also have a lavalier. Would you like to hear that?
Oh, something
Yes, present, yes. And then you can. Oh, so you're not gonna.
I'll be happy to use
Well,
it, but I don't think they're gonna need
Well,
it.
the thing is, for live streaming.
Oh, you need it for that, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think the lavalier, I mean, otherwise you have to stand up here, which is fine.
Oh, Lavalier would be wonderful.
Okay, so go with that. Okay, whatever.
And there's a hand mic too?
Yes.
And then you could use the hand mic. Yeah.
And with the hand mic, you have to hold it really close to you. So you might want to move your mask.
Yeah, we will.
Depending what
Would you like to sit here, or do you want to stand at the podium?
I just understand.
Okay, is that easier than you can,
Yeah, I think I wander around and I can look at my nose and.
okay, do you want that, do you want the hand mic, or?
Well, you said yes to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll put it here and then we can
That's the way.
Sue, I'll put a chair right here in case you want to take a break. and I'll
Okay.
pick one for you.
Yeah. But either one of us wants to.
Here, just go on, and I'm going to introduce you.
Oh, you're going to get out of
I'm going to introduce you. That's okay. Well, yeah, I can do that. Good evening. Welcome to All Saints, most of you we know well, and welcome to all those who are participating remotely. For the last year, the All Saints Care for Our Common Home team has explored ways to act on the Laudato Si Action platform, which is based on Pope Francis's encyclical on care for our common home. As many of you know, there are 7 areas in which the Pope urges us to act. Most of us are familiar with the areas of responding to the cry of the earth, responding to the cry of the poor, or adopting sustainable lifestyles. But tonight, we're addressing an area that often escapes our attention and our action, that of ecological and economics. We're delighted that Sue Hansen and Gail Olivet of Hansen's Advisory Services have worked with us on planning this presentation. Both Sue and Gail are earth lovers and enjoy outdoor activities like biking, swimming, boating, hiking. This, of course, gives them a unique perspective on why we need to care for our earth. Sue has practiced and promoted socially responsible investments for over 30 years. It would take most of our time to enumerate all the environmental and social justice practices which Sue and her team are involved in. Just to name a few, Hanson's Advisory Services has about 80% of their client assets in sustainable investments. They have extensive knowledge of socially responsible investing. Many of their clients are very involved in their communities and work toward making our world a more peaceful place. They provide retirement plans for nonprofit organizations and their employees. Hanson's Advisory Services is woman-owned and woman-operated. Got that, Meg? Wherever she went. They are a Green America Gold certified business. 2 of their staff members drive hybrid cars. All of their lighting is LED. Their Fayetteville office has solar panels. They use local resources for everything from artwork to catering. They are members of the Syracuse Peace Council, First Affirmative Financial Network, and SAGE Upstate. So they're very involved, not to mention the many places they contribute to. At the end of the presentation, there'll be an opportunity for questions or comments. And for those of you who are participating remotely, we will post a phone number to which you could text your questions or comments. And also, we're asking those remotely, and I'll have my email up there. If you send an email to me, we will send you a resource packet that has a number of good resources. And it's now my pleasure and privilege to turn the floor over to Sue Hanson and her associate, Gail Olivet.
Okay, I think I got the technology right here. So very nice to be with you, and it's very nice to have a little small group. You can feel free to interrupt us and ask questions on the spot so you don't forget the question. And we will try to address whatever your concerns might be. So let me get my little clicker here. All right, I don't want to get in anybody's way. So this is the introduction, Riding the Sustainable Wave with Green Investing, is really a great metaphor for what's happened in the social responsible investing field. The wave is getting larger and larger and creating something very positive like surfboarding, where you have pleasure in what you see by the results of what you do with your investments. So now you're hearing more and more about social responsible investing. You're hearing the terms ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues when you're investing. And more people are becoming knowledgeable about the fact that when you invest this way, you can make as much money, or maybe even a little more, than you would in a regular type of investment. So those are the studies that are coming out. That is the research that's being done by very capable analysts, researchers. Papers are being awarded honors for doing some great research in this field of social responsible investing. And Riding the Wave is, I love it because this is the Isar River in Munich, Germany. And they created from that river a place that went through the Englischer Garden, a wonderful park, where surfboarders could get on here and surf because some wave is created just before you go over a barrier. Well, they surf for just so long, and they fall. And there's a line you can't see of other surfers waiting to get on, because you only do 1 or 2 surfers at a time. So you have to wait for somebody to get out to be there. Now, social responsible investing, you don't have to wait for anybody to get out. You all get in there at the same time. So that was fun to see. Now I got to... I just worked this a little while ago. Ah, there we go. All right, now Gail's going to join in on anything she wants to add to, and so interrupt me if you've got something to add. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about investing in the types of things you know about, but I want to make sure everybody has an idea of the level of investing you can do in each one of these. So banks or credit union, you're very familiar with that. And there are banks, and there are credit union, mostly credit unions, and some community banks that kind of fit between banks and credit unions. So credit unions are usually community focused in a local area where they're serving the people around their building, their location, and they loan to a lot of people and places that a regular bank might not. Your purpose with a credit union is more about serving. Your purpose with many big banks is more about profit.
Yeah, they're commercial, so their purpose is to make money for the stockholders.
Now that's one way many people invest. They put their money in the bank or the credit union and then that's it. But if you want to have some influence on what's happening around you with the products that manufacturers, big companies produce, and how they treat the environment when they're doing it, whether it's in the manufacturing process, whether it's the product that's dangerous or not dangerous, and very helpful or not helpful. So you can buy a single stock, one company stock. You can buy an Apple share or a Starbucks share or IBM, whatever. That's single stock. Now you can buy a single bond too. A single bond would be like loaning your money, putting your money in a bond project that's going to build a dormitory, that's going to build a solar farm, that's going to build a wind farm, that's going to plant certain trees in certain areas, or you can buy a bond that's just a company's bond. So GE or GM or Google is floating a bond, they say. That means that you can buy into that investment, and you'll get an interest rate. You'll get an interest every month or quarter, whatever they do, from that bond. So that's kind of a promised investment, a single bond.
Yeah, so to make it simple, with a bond, you're lending money to the facility, whether it's a municipality or a company. And with a stock, you're owning part of the company. You're having a share of ownership in the company.
Right. So if you say you wanted to start a new business, and you didn't have enough money, so you said to the people that you know, your friends and so on and so forth, would you be willing to put some money in this project? And I don't know whether I can ever pay you back. You're just taking a chance that this business is going to do really well. And if I go bankrupt or I'm not going to make it, you won't get any money. Whereas in a single bond, you say to people, would you like to loan me some money? And I'll promise to pay you an interest rate for so many years. So that's why they say a stock or stock mutual fund is more risky than a bond mutual fund, because you got a little bit of a promise in that bond. Probably they won't go bankrupt, and if they did get close to going bankrupt, they probably, most likely, would have the integrity to try to keep paying you, but some things happen. But
So consequently, you have more opportunity to make more money with the stock, because you're limited with the bond to the interest rate on it, where the stock, if the company does really well, you can do really well. You could also, if it doesn't do well, lose your money.
so then what was decided many, many years ago, probably around the 1940s, I believe that Investment Act was, they decided that they could put all kinds of companies' stock in one investment vehicle, or all kinds kinds of companies and projects bonds in one investment vehicle, and that's the mutual fund. That one. So what a mutual fund is just maybe 30, 40 different companies, stock companies, and if it's big companies, they call that probably a growth and income mutual fund. If it's smaller companies just getting started, they probably call that a growth mutual fund. And sometimes there's balanced mutual funds where you can have some bonds and some stocks in a mutual fund, put them in one vehicle, one investment vehicle, and that's your balanced fund. That gives you some conservativeness with the bonds and some more risk with the stocks. Now, why I keep going risk with the stocks is, yes, that's true, but you have risk with a bond. It's a different kind of risk. The risk is if inflation is 3% and your bond is only making 2%, you're losing money. That's your risk. So you put your money in a bank, credit union, and they're making less than 1% right now. Inflation's 3-ish. Might be higher because the Social Security went up farther, higher than that. You're actually losing money on your money. It's not keeping up with the cost of living.
So one of the major advantages of mutual funds is that you can diversify your portfolio with less money. So to own a lot of different stocks and a lot of different bonds, to have good diversified portfolio, you have to have a lot of money. Where with a mutual fund, you can have a diversified portfolio with a small amount of money. So it opened up a lot of possibilities to people who may not have been able to invest otherwise because they just didn't have that much money to invest.
And with mutual funds, you can do it as little as $50 a month to start an investment. You just do that every month, make sure it's coming from your checking account, they'll accept it, and it's a great way for people to get started. Yes?
Just to sort of be able to picture this in my own head, because I think this is confusing.
Use the microphone so people remotely can hear.
Just to clarify, who would be like the master owner of a mutual fund? Who gathers all these gigantic companies, and
Okay.
how do they do that?
Okay, yeah. So there are, let's say you have a bank called JP Morgan. They're a big company, huge company. They have the personnel, they have the money to go out and buy lots of shares of different companies and put them in this vehicle, that's legal kind of vehicle, that allows all those shares to be in the same vehicle, the same organization, and they call it the Growth and Income Mutual Fund. And then there's a manager that JP Morgan would hire to manage that. Then
it's
go ahead.
really an investment company that puts together these packages, these mutual funds, and they hire managers, investment managers, that actually oversee. And it's usually a team of people, not like one person overseeing the whole thing. And as more money comes in, they have more opportunity to buy more things and make changes in that portfolio. And they're just managing that portfolio, and each portfolio has its own objective and clear delineation of what they're trying to accomplish with that.
What's in it for them? Do they take a cut somewhere?
They make a lot of money, yes.
Well, yes.
Those fund managers make a lot of money.
Well, you'll see on anytime you invest in a mutual fund, you'll get a prospectus, or it's online for you. You can go look at it, and it'll tell you the charges. So often a management fee, you'll hear you'll say, what are the operating expenses of this mutual fund? Well, it could be from anywhere from 0.5, even 0.2 to 2%. It depends on what research they have to do for running that mutual fund. If it's an international mutual fund, international companies, they're they're having to incur lots of cost to research internationally. They have to have offices there, they have to have people right there on the spot near the company, than it would for them just to buy US bonds and then have this mutual fund with all these US bonds in it. So your operating expenses are going to be different.
Yeah, the more specialized it is, the more it would cost to manage it.
Yeah.
So to use your example, if I had an investment with, say, JP Morgan Chase,
Mm-hmm.
and they decide to do this, to create a mutual fund,
Mm-hmm.
do I get a vote in that? Do they ask me, okay, you've got $2 here, we want to invest it, is that okay with you?
You get to vote in a proxy. So once you own
Okay.
shares, they'll send you a proxy to vote. Yes, and there are certain things that they have to have their shareholders vote on.
Is being part of a mutual fund one of them?
Well,
Or
you
the way
wouldn't
they-
just, they wouldn't just put you in, that would be a decision you would make. You would say, oh, I want to invest in that. They
The
can't
microphone.
just take they can't just take your money and put it in. It would be something you would, yes.
Yeah.
Or make the decision to do in the first place.
And then you would do paperwork and paperwork and paperwork. Now, ETFs are just kind of the new version, a little different than mutual funds, but also ETFs, exchange traded funds, are a conglomeration of different stocks and different bonds, or all stocks, all bonds. And it's one of the biggest differences is with a mutual fund, you say you want to buy something, you have to buy it after, they'll only buy it after the close of the day and they use that price. With an ETF, you can buy into the ETF anytime during the day at the price that you called in or you sent your money or whatever it is. So it's just a little different, but essentially the same concept.
It's a little more like a hybrid, closer to an index fund where it has a certain set thing, so it can trade all day long. Where a mutual fund could be changed at any time. They could buy and sell some of the investments in there. Where the ETF is more set what it's going to be because it's priced out all day long based on the things that are in it.
And then what she's saying with an index is a set group of particular companies or bonds, and they let it sit there. They're not changing what's in there very much. Whereas a mutual fund, like Gail just said, could be changing it from day to day, buying and selling inside to change what's in there. If you listen to the news, you'll hear about the S&P index or the Dow index. So the S&P 500 are the 500 largest companies. That's it. That's all they have. And you don't just willy-nilly buy and sell. Of course, you don't willy-nilly anyway, but you can't change it. The 500 index is the 500 index. And this makes me think, to say this before I don't remember to say it, is the first social responsible index was created from the S&P 500 index. They took these 500 companies and only chose the ones that met certain criteria for environmental, social, and governance issues, all kinds of human rights issues and those kinds of things. Okay. Now, I'm talking about social responsible investing, and I'm talking about environmental, social, and governance, ESG investing. But this social responsible moniker has graduated to being all types of, it has become many, many names because the social responsible investing, I'm sure, made some people feel like If they weren't doing it, they weren't responsible. And it also made people that weren't used to this kind of criteria kind of laugh at people like me for even thinking that would work. Now they don't do that, but when I first started, it was the most silly thing a financial advisor could probably do. But, so now they've changed it, social responsible, sustainable is a good word. People connect to it, and we have some other ones here. It's called corporate. Now, corporate social responsibility is now a whole concept about the responsibility of a corporation. For many years, it was thought the responsibility of a corporation was to only make money, no matter what. You had to pay your shareholders the most possible amount. You had to make the most possible amount. Doesn't matter what you harmed or who you harmed. That was their mission. But now, hopefully, more and more companies, and even us as individuals and the things we become involved in, it's our responsibility to be responsible to society, to the earth, to other countries, all kinds of things. So that's where my dream is that will just be the way it is. There will be no more I have to make a profit. I have to make a profit to the earth. That's the mission I like to see.
Yeah, in that corporate social responsibility, also there's a new reporting that's been the last few years. That's part of the annual reports that these big publicly traded companies are now producing a corporate responsibility report as well.
And that's where Kathy got some of her information about us, was on our corporate social responsibility document on our webpage. So when you write a corporate social responsibility plan, you want to include as much as you can that's contributing to the goodness of us all. And now there's templates and all kinds of directions, things many years ago, I don't know if you know Frank Satira, but he was with a small business. He just stopped being with the small business group. But anyway, he had a program just locally for green companies. And we had our certificate, our Green Core certificate, because we had to answer all these questions about different things. We had to get a rain barrel. We had to make sure we had our compost bucket outside. All those things. We had to look over our building to make sure our heating was not harming anybody, all those things. But the Green Core, where there weren't enough people seeking it at that point, he had to kind of give it up. Yes?
Is there any kind of body that would hold a corporation accountable to being socially responsible, or is that just in the hands of the investors? I mean, the government does not regulate corporate social responsibility, correct?
That's correct, to a degree. They've been having trouble just getting it to be fiduciarily responsible to have social responsible criteria. There were the years where you can't say that. You can't say that a fiduciary has to be responsible to the earth. But now it's turning around. After we've gotten through the Trump era, we've come back a little bit, and we're building the other way. Let's just hope that keeps going. And the other question about, is there a body that holds you to that? You have to be choosing to be part of it right now. I wish there was a body. And hopefully this turnaround will get to that place. But you can be a B Corp. And many corporations that are C corporations or S corporations or limited partnerships, and most big companies are C corporations. You can also be a B Corp. You don't give up your C corporation designation. But if you're a B Corp, you do just what Green Corps was doing here locally. You have all kinds of criteria you must fulfill. in order to be qualified as a B corporation. And you can advertise it, and people are going to be happy about buying from you or using your services. Okay. And then we have ethical investing. Ethical investing really came more from, started in Europe. There was a woman called Hazel Henderson that started this whole movement. And it's just, you know, looking at what's the right thing for everybody. Am I being ethical? Value-based, so they're saying, am I investing with what I believe? If I'm investing in things I believe in, or am I just investing because I want to make a couple extra dollars and I don't care what it does to anybody? So what we try to do with people that, well, in our marketing, we try to say, you know, invest with what you believe, invest with your values. This is what we're trying to give people the opportunity to do. It's kind of was the invest with your values is on a lot of places that do what we do. They use that to advertise and to market because that's it. That's what we're trying to do. Your values and your values might be different, but invest what you have with those values. We're now doing much more encouraging of not just individuals, but of nonprofits. You say you want to do this and this and this in your mission, but you have a lot of Exxon in your investment portfolio. So trying to get that to match and get them to understand they can do just as well. They can be responsible to their members, to their employees by doing that. And employees are becoming more interested. So there's more pressure from the inside, which is a great thing. And impact investing usually refers to, rather than saying you're doing the social responsible investing, what the investing I'm doing is having an impact positively on other things, other people, other corporations, other ways of doing things. That's the impact you have. So there's just so many terms.
Yeah, most of the terms are about the same thing, but they're different ways of presenting it so that people would kind of understand and buy into it.
And this ESG, environmental social governance. So one of the things that managers who run mutual funds that are socially responsible, they know that if you don't have good governance, if you don't have an organization that follows certain concepts or certain rules, you don't keep that in order, and you don't make things efficient, that you're not going to make as much money in your business, and you do it in a way that's not harming anybody, you're probably going to end up making more money. You're going to cost less because you're going to make less mistakes, and you're going to reuse, you're going to recycle. You know, you're governing in a way that is helping the world, but it's also helping you not have to spend much money on expenses. And then climate change and carbon emissions is all part of the special issues that are looked at when you look at social responsible investing. These things are measured. These are the things that are measured before you decide you're going to buy a company. That's what that means, all these. There'll be more of them. So your gender and diversity policies, what are they? How many women do you have on the board? How many different, how many different ethnic representatives do you have on your board and in your administration and in your workforce and so forth? And when they're using that criteria to decide whether to buy a company or not, or even to loan money to a company or loan money on a bond project, they can exclude that company. In other words, I'm not investing in an Exxon. I don't even want to look at it. I don't even want to know about that. I don't want it in my portfolio. or you can include. So let's say you have something that's somewhat egregious, let's say Amazon. They've done a lot of tremendous deficiencies and created a whole new world for us out here. But there's some things that they didn't do so well, especially with employees and work environments, that kind of thing. So you're kind of iffy. Should I invest in that or shouldn't I invest in that? Well, you might include them in your portfolio, but at the same time you're including, you're going to make sure as a stockholder that you're going to try to change the way they do things. And what happens with that is, if you're a mutual fund and you have thousands of investors, people like you folks, and they're putting their money in there, you have millions and millions of dollars that you own in shares of a particular company of Amazon. You have some influence by being the director of that mutual fund. You can go and meet with them. That's called shareholder advocacy. And that will come up later on the slide. So you can advocate. And it's still, I think it is, if you only have it begins when you have $2,000 invested. Now, they tried to change that, but I don't think it did get changed. I think we're still at the 2,000 level. That you can write a resolution, send it into the company, and see how many of the shareholders will vote on that resolution to make sure we have 30% of other ethnic representations besides white folks. Those kinds of things, all kinds of issues you can write a resolution for. And that's what mutual funds do every day. Many of them are out there trying to persuade companies to become a more responsible member of community.
So I have a question. Do you have any level of advocacy if you decide to go through the single stock or the single bond option?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. With that single stock, single bond, I'm not sure about that one. But single stock option, that's what I'm saying, the $2,000, if you invested at least $2,000. You can go to board meetings, and you can vote on any resolution or write a resolution yourself.
Okay, so this wouldn't have to be just limited to mutual funds or ETFs?
No. I'm just mentioning that because they have millions where we might have a couple thousand.
Yeah, the thing is with the mutual funds, they have so much money because they're band together of a bunch of small investors. So not only does that mutual fund have a lot of power, but it joins with other mutual funds, and then there's a big block of stock all of a sudden that's all pushing the management to do something different. One little shareholder with $2,000 is probably not going to get very far. But that big block of stock now has some power to make them take notice and actually make a change.
And let me just mention some mutual funds that have been doing this. And maybe some of them will be familiar to you. Have you heard of Calvert Funds? Okay, they're the biggest social responsible investing company because they have the longest list of different types of mutual funds, from bonds to stocks to mix of stocks and bonds to world exposure. There's other ones, though, that have been one of the first in the field, like PACS, world funds. I don't know if you've ever heard about that, which now is not PACS but Impacts, because they've joined a firm in England and making even more inroads into social responsible investing because they have more money behind them. There's another company called Parnassus. Okay, and so those are probably Green Century. Tell you a little story about Green Century Funds. Green Century Funds was created from a nonprofit organization called, remember NYPIRG? Anyone, they come to your door and ask for donations? All those PIRGs all over the nation created this Green Century investment company. And it's the only mutual fund company whose profits go back into creating other nonprofits or back into the PERG system. Yeah. They've done a lot of work with deforestation and getting companies not to use the palm oil and not cut down all the trees and harm the rainforest and so on and so forth. They've done a lot of work with Green Century has. That's what when you said that about joining with others. So Green Century might do what did I just say? Resolution that would include Calvert Funds, Parnassus Funds, PAX funds. They might all get together and really make some changes. And they have made changes. This is why you're here listening to this, because it's just evolving and evolving. So more people are involved. So here are some of the other examples of some screens. So gambling, tobacco, alcohol, nuclear power, weapons, and fossil fuels. Those are all things that you could look for in a mutual fund or in a single stock. So you can go to fossil-free funds. I've got it in my resource list. You'll see it in a minute. .org. And you can put in your mutual fund you might own. You just put in the symbol or the name, and that'll tell you how much you have in that fund in fossil fuels. And there's some other sites too that'll be on there I can tell you about. And then the positive screens where do you use renewable energy, energy efficiency, waste? Do you do things with your waste? Do you have something that's organic that you produce? So there's different ways of looking at it.
Yeah, so there's different ways to screen. Either you can screen out things you don't want to invest in, and then there's positive screens where you're screening in the things you do want to invest with your money. So if you really feel strongly that you want to invest in renewable energy, there are ways to do that. You know, companies that are really on the forefront of innovating new and technology and new ways to produce it.
So here's your negative. Coal, oil, gas, nuclear power can be seen as plus or minus, depending on your thinking. Military weapons, civil firearm companies. I was just reading something about a screen of a fund that was didn't want any weapons in their portfolio, but weapons that were sold to police people, or there was one other thing too, but something that's protective of society, they would invest in that. And there's degrees to which, too, that you want to screen out companies. So let's say a company makes guns, you don't want them. But let's say a company manufactures that little pin that goes in part of the gun, and it makes other kinds of pins and other things that don't go to military weapons. Well, is that egregious enough? Because they're not really making the product, the gun. So, you know, all that's looked at.
Yeah, or a store that might also sell guns, but they sell everything else under the sun. Do you not want to invest in them? Yeah, like Walmart.
What did you say, Walmart?
Yeah. Do you not want to invest in them because of that? Because they do sell guns? Or is it okay because they provide a service in areas where people really need what they're, you know. There's a lot of gray areas. It's not cut and dry.
I think, and you probably can comment on this more, but I think New York State teacher retirement system, NYSTERS, has switched all of its investments away from fossil fuels and so on. I mean, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars in this.
Yeah.
So if you can comment on that. But I mean, I think it's a huge shift for one of the largest pension funds in the nation.
It is. It's a tremendous shift. Started in the New York City teachers group, and it's gone now into the whole state system. And I think California is the only other one I've heard about that has been considering that for years. And I think some of their retirement plans are that. I'm not sure if they all are.
I'm thinking that I just read recently that about some lawmakers who are trying to pass laws that would forbid particularly pension funds from considering those kinds of things. They can only consider whether it's making money or not. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you're right about that. And
Yeah.
and that came to the forefront even more during the Trump administration.
Yeah, and it's happening now too with
Yep.
the conservative kind of. I read about that in Ballotpedia, you guys.
In
It
what?
has a whole section on Ballotpedia,
Okay.
and they have a whole section on the environmental and social and corporate governance with all kinds of news from that week. You
Oh.
can get a weekly newsletter on that.
Oh, neat.
And they talk about, you're explaining a lot of the stuff that I was reading that I was like, I don't get this. So,
That's good. Okay. Yeah.
Will we see an investment screen that includes treatment of employees?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
then I'll wait till that happens.
Well, you know, I don't know whether I put it on here. I just thought about that. I held that button down too long.
Okay, well, I'll make my comment while you're trying to find the slide
Okay.
again. You mentioned Amazon before,
Uh-huh.
and Amazon has been in the news quite a bit because of its mistreatment of employees and its attempts to prevent their employees from unionizing. And so, in fact, just yesterday there was an article in the paper about 2 union organizers in New York City being fired for what sounded like really trumped up there's that word Trump again, trumped up charges. But it's very complicated because Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, Mackenzie Scott, who's a billionaire and whose wealth, all of her wealth came from co-founding Amazon with Bezos. She's given away $3.8 billion to nonprofits, including historically black colleges and universities, and every one of her $3.8 billion of donations have been social justice issues. But her wealth comes from a company that beats up union organizers. So it's very complicated.
It is very complicated. Yeah, and some people think that, all right, I can go out and do what I want with my product or treat people in other countries less than I would here in the United States where there are certain rules and laws. And that's okay because then I'm going to give it away to a charity. But I think it's a convoluted philosophy to do bad here and then do good over here. You're not really erasing the bad. But say it again? Ends and means. Yes, ends and means. Yeah. So here's, this slide first, I guess. We talked about this. Oh. Gently, right. There I am. I hit the wrong button. All right, so shareholder advocacy. We talked about that. We talked about writing resolutions, getting together as mutual funds. That's shareholder advocacy. Community investing, a percentage of mutual fund profits in community projects. So there you have this example of Green Century, taking their profits and investing it in other nonprofits. There's also Calvert PACs and other mutual fund companies that are in the SRI field that give 1% to community of all their profits. They don't give all the profits like Green Century because they're not a nonprofit, but they give up 1%. I think it's Parnassus that does, Parnassus or Impacts that does 2%. I think it's Parnassus. So not only are you investing in this mutual fund, and yes, you're paying an operating expense because a lot of people are working for you when you invest that money. But of the money they make, they're giving a percentage to other groups and nonprofits. And so other things that we're talking about when it comes to employees, human rights would be in that piece. How do we treat our employees as far as our atmosphere in the building or whatever our structure is? Are we thinking of the healthy employee? Board composition, that's a diversity issue. And it's been, they've done studies where if you have a diverse board or more women on the board, I think it's specifically studied about the women on the board. If you have so many, then your company makes more profit. It's been proven. I mean, over many years. If you add women to that board, you're going to make more money. So it's a whole diversity issue.
I think also diversity.
Oh,
The more diversity you have on your board, the more different points of view and different outlooks in life, the better the company will do.
And then the issues of executive compensation. Ben & Jerry's was the big starter of that. They were not going to make more than so many times. I think it was at that time was 2 or 3 times what an employee would make. So they started that movement. And now when we're looking at the criteria for investing in companies, we're thinking of executive compensation and are not going to invest in somebody that gets 1,000 times what the employee gets, which is happening in many big companies. Yeah. And the energy efficiency labor standards, which I was talking a little bit about, is the atmosphere in a structure or a place where you work. Audit committee structure, so who's auditing? That's part of the governance? So how's it look? Are they hiring somebody they're giving money to in some other way, like an accounting firm that somehow they got a deal going, and that's the accounting firm that's getting the job, so therefore you're not going to get a true audit? Those kinds of things. The management of your waste, corruption, bribery, political contributions, making sure you're using your water to the best use and reuse. This lobbying activities, how many companies, many companies spend a lot of money on lobbying that's not going into the efficiency of their product or their service. The lobbying is getting money for somebody, and it's not always lobbying for the good of all. And then there's a criteria that looks at, well, how much is this company being part of the community in which they're doing their work? Are they part of the community? Are they contributing to the community? Are their employees involved in the community? What do the employees say? So some of these evaluations, they go right into the company. Some of these mutual fund managers and their team go right to the company and ask employee questions. So it's really a rigorous evaluation of a company by having these social, environmental, and governance standards. We talked about biodiversity. Oh, I did it again. So biodiversity and deforestation, talked a little bit about that, but just having the mindset that what is here on Earth has a purpose, and the forest has a purpose to keep us healthy. There are other things that are out in the biological world that are there because it is something that let's take a plant, for instance. A plant is there, and you harvest it, but you don't harvest all of it. You leave enough of it so that it grows back more prodigiously, and so it serves, by you having some of it, it serves the growth of that plant. And by you having some of it, it creates a healthy body. So there's this give and take mentality people need to have about the preservation of these living things that we don't think of as living things so many times. They're just for our use. And there's not the give and take mentality. I don't know if you read the book by Robin Kimmerer, Braiding Sweetgrass, but that's just, she's just put it out there to make you so thoughtful of how you treat things, living things around you, and how we're all connected, even trees being connected, in their own language between each other, or the moss on the tree and the fungi and all that. So, yeah. Say it again. You sound like Oh. All right, so this is some basics. And if you have any questions, we're going to leave a question and answer. But if for you people now, any other questions before we go into this last part? Yes.
Just the name of that book that you just mentioned.
Braiding Sweetgrass. Robin Kimmerer is a local Fabius person. Yeah, and she also teaches at ESF.
And our Care for Our Common Home Task Force is offering a book study on using braiding sweetgrass in the fall.
September.
So wonderful, wonderful book.
I think the community choir is doing one now, too, on her book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what can you, yes, go ahead.
Well, I think I might have missed this while you were explaining it, but if someone buys a mutual fund or an ETF, and let's say they like 99 of the companies in it, but not one, can they just buy into this program and then decide not to send money to that one company?
No.
They have to buy in
Yeah.
to everything.
They have to buy in. The only way, lots of people want to do that, and the only way to do it is to buy individual stocks in your portfolio. Don't have a mutual fund in your portfolio. Have individual stocks, and then you can agree to what each one is. Okay?
But that's a lot of work, and also
He's got plenty of time.
also takes a lot of money because there's to diversify.
All right.
But that's also more, the variety with a mutual fund means you're safer.
Yes,
You're taking a lot of chances with one stock.
that's right. There's more risk. There's more real risk.
That's the word, risk.
Yeah. Yeah, the diversification lowers your risk, just like diversification of people lowers your risk. You don't have just that few ideas. Yeah, diversification is a risk modifier. I hadn't thought about that. All right. So what can you do? We're going to look right now and see where your checking account is, your savings account is. If it's in a big bank like Bank of America or Chase, JP Morgan Chase, or one of those banks, yes, it may be simple for you. You may have been there for years, but your money is not going where you want your money to go, probably in your local community. It's not serving as many people that need the money as would a credit union or a community bank. It may be serving a lot of people with not much money, but it's not really doing any good for them as far as them growing up to have more money.
They also may be lending money to oil companies and pipeline production and all sorts of other things that you might not want to be doing with your money, and you have no control over that, and you don't even have any really visibility to it. They just do what they do behind the scenes.
Right. That's in the pipelines in South Dakota, that area. There was a real big movement to stop, to persuade shareholders, persuading Banks of America and those banks not to invest in those pipelines because they were the loaners of the money to create the project for the pipelines. So that started quite a movement on the big banks. We did a couple workshops for called Don't Bank on the Bottom with a Peace Council. So, you know, there still is a movement to
Divest from the
Yeah.
big commercial banks.
Okay. Check your 401ks, your 403bs. These are all your retirement plans, 457s. It's usually when you're working for a government. You have a 457. A 403b is when you're working for a nonprofit. Many school districts, many nonprofits have 403bs. There's some nonprofits now that have 401ks, but that used to be just for profit companies, the 401ks. But it's all the same thing. You put the money in before you get it in your hand in salary, and you don't pay taxes on the amount of money you put away in that retirement plan until you take the money out. But mostly what I've experienced through employers, nonprofit employers and profit employers, there are very few choices in social responsible investing. There's more than there used to be. I think we have one or two annuity companies that might have one choice or two choices in their product where people put their 403bs or their 401ks. But most companies don't have those choices. And there's a push by employees to change that. And hopefully that push will get bigger and bigger. And these companies are starting to realize this diversity issue, this environment, social, and governments, is making more money for their companies. So they'll start including it. And that rule about you can't do it, that you were just asking about, hopefully, you know, that our SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, will rule in favor of you need to do that. Because all the studies, the research is showing it. You're not being fiduciary responsible if you don't do it. But there are people that want to turn that around and go back to the old way, what I think was the old way.
Yeah, it's kind of stuck in that old thinking. And often those accounts are most people's largest savings. They're, you know, that's where you save for your retirement. So these are really most people's biggest saving assets. And when you're working, you have to leave it where you're working so that you're stuck with the choices that are offered in that plan. And, you know, sometimes there's some good ones, but often there's not.
Teachers usually have more choices in the 403b platform. It used to be that employers never chose the investments. They just allowed many different companies to come in and talk to teachers.
Yeah, I'm a retired college professor, so our retirement is all with TIAA. And we were in the process of filling out a form for social responsible investment, but we decided to hold off until we came to this. Do we have the ability to filter and screen, or do we just just fill out the form and trust them to do whatever they think is right?
They have, this is the last one. It's the last option if you stay in TIA.
Okay.
You're retired now, so you don't have to stay in TIA.
Okay.
TIA has, I believe, a bond fund and one social choice, which is stocks. That's all they have. They're a good nonprofit corporation. They have other choices that you can choose, but they have very little in the SRI field, although they have more maybe than many of the annuity companies out there. But once you retire and you're not working in that company, you can take that money, roll it into another platform, and make it an IRA, and then you'll have a lot of these social responsible choices available to you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so another thing you can do is look at your other investments besides what's in the employer's plan. And then you can choose to, say, be part of a loan to the cooperative, I'm trying to say, grocery store on Kensington.
Food co-op.
All right, so they put out a loan offer where you could loan them money, and for a certain amount of money. So there's a place that you could put your money in locally in the community, that you pretty much know about that place, and you don't feel like it's a terrible risk, or there's some risk with it. And then other ways you can do it is just to have your IRA outside, or maybe have a Roth IRA, or maybe you just have a plain old account that's not a retirement account, but you think of it as your retirement account perhaps. You know you're going to keep it for a while. You have all kinds of choices. You can go to somebody like us, any other financial planner. They're going to find other choices for you. Whether they know about social responsible investing is questionable, but more people are getting to know. But we know that we're the only ones that are out there marketing themselves as SRI investment counselors in this area. Now, there probably are some other people that would go try to find you some different funds, but haven't had the history of knowing how this social responsible investing has grown through time. And there are other parts of the country where there are more of us located. Massachusetts, Boston, there's many more of us there. New York City, there's many more of us. Washington, D.C., California, there's more of us. We go to an annual conference where we meet all the financial planners that are doing what we do around the country. So we kind of get to know where they are located, where the most of them are. And people now are just investing with, you could be here in New York investing with somebody that is in California. I mean, we're now investing long distance. We're having our portfolios long distance. Some of us are fine with that, some of us don't want to do that. We still want to be local. But that's up to you. Yep. Okay. Now that you've been here, spread the word. Talk to other people. And when you start talking to somebody will ask you a question. Say, oh, I don't think I know that answer. You know, and let them know who we are. They want to ask a question, email us, go to our webpage, and if they have some questions that you can't answer, or you yourself want the answer, you do the same. And the more of us that learn about it, and the more of us that are invested in that kind of investing, the better it'll be. Now here's some resources for you. Uh-oh.
I think sometimes, those beyond your pension fund things, like insurance companies or whatever, they can solicit and say, hey, maybe for your retirement you need to be sure that you're funded throughout the rest of your life, and how about taking out a big annuity? And of course, most of the time these things go up to 2.5% and 3%, but it seems really geared for the annuity company, and they give you this sales pitch and all this kind of thing. Then maybe you can comment on that, because I'm really, I don't like the kind of stuff that's done.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Annuities have a place in the world. They will give you a guaranteed income for the rest of your life, but you don't own the money anymore. It's not your money anymore when you start getting an annuity. The teacher's retirement system is an annuity. So it's a wonderful thing to have. You know you're going to get so much money for the rest of your life. It's kind of like Social Security. It's a stability. So there's a place for an annuity. But usually the place is not a place where you want to be diversified, you want social responsible investing, you want control of your money, you want less expenses. It's not the place. But I can't say all the features are are bad. Some are really good for certain people. And we don't do a lot of annuities, but we do annuities for people that's a good thing for.
It's a way to create a pension since there aren't very many pensions anymore. It's a way that you could take money that you saved for retirement and create a pension that you can't outlive. But it's an insurance product by an insurance company, and it carries certain costs of providing that insurance. And then, as Sue said, you give up the rights to that money. So if you're fine to just get those payments, whatever they're going to create for the rest of your life, that's fine, but then you can't suddenly need $20,000 for a new car out of that money because you won't be able to take it. You're just going to have these monthly payments or whatever it is that you've agreed to from the product.
And it depends on you, who you are personally. You know, some people, if they don't have a teacher's retirement system or some kind of pension, they really need an annuity. And then, this is going to be available, right? Kathy, you're going to talk about that?
I put this on the, like the resource page.
Is she the mic?
So it's on our website.
Yeah, we're going to have this posted on our webpage along with some other resources that our Care for Our Common Home Task Force has put together. And anyone who's watching remotely, we'll have a slide up in a minute with my email. If you email me, we will email the packet rather than print it. We're trying to be good here. And anyone here, you've given me your email, and we will make sure that you get, it has Sue's plus the others. So to get the resource packet, just send an email to kgosh49@gmail.com, and we'll make sure you get it. It will also be on our website, allsaintsyracuse.org. All right, too many of these. All right. Did you want to do
What did you want?
No, I didn't know if you were doing the questions.
I will go.
Make one comment, and when I got out of graduate school, I had no idea. I worked for county.
Is that on? Yeah.
I worked for OCC, and they told me I had one option to invest, and at that point I was really young, and I was sort of like, well, what's that all about? I guess if you just look around the room tonight, you're not seeing young folks sitting here, you're not seeing a lot of people of diversity sitting here, and they're the people who would really love to invest in the issues you're talking about, and if they understood that that's what this is kind of investing is talking about, not just their personal growth financially, that would be so winning. So do you guys ever see kids just graduating, coming out of college, and carry on these kinds of forums for those kids?
We haven't done it, but it would be a wonderful thing to do. I've often thought of, starting a program and regularly going to a high school and teaching, but I'm so involved in making this business work that I don't have time.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful idea.
It just seems to me there's a place for it, because it seems like for me, until I was well into my 40s, I really didn't have a clue. I knew they were putting money away for me, but I didn't know much.
Yeah.
And I think if we started our kids earlier, say just graduating from college, and partner with some of those young people, and like what you were saying, you can invest in a mutual fund $50 a month. Well, they don't think they have the kind of money to invest in stocks.
Yeah.
And I know some of my friends who are minority folks really don't trust the market, really are, still would rather bury their money under the bed. So it's like, I think there's a great area to improve if they understand that these ethical issues can go along hand in hand with that.
Yeah. When I first started out in this, I did a lot of nonprofit workshops and things. I haven't done as many in the last several years, but yes, that's a wonderful idea.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So now, Kathy, anybody has called in, or?
Again, if there's anyone remotely who has a question or comment, the numbers are up there right there. You can text it to the 440 or 481 number at this time, and Liz or I can read the questions to Sue.
Okay, all right.
I know Dan Pluff has a new show on Channel 24, and I mean, your stuff here should be part of that show, so I mean, maybe
And we are sponsoring that show on some times. And some of the
because this is a way of getting your message out to these young people in colleges, but love to see you on the show.
on the show, yeah, okay. But we are being one of the sponsors on that. So I don't know if you've seen our WCNY. We've done for years, the video of our business. And we've been on WRVO for many, many, many years. So that's another way we're trying.
A profile piece of what you do
Oh.
at SRI would be wonderful to see, for sure.
Oh, I see, okay. All right. Well, I used to be on the show sometimes when Dan Pluff was doing that other one, where he was the facilitator. Yeah.
Okay, we have one from a text. This is from Mary Jane Riley. It says, your presentation was easy to follow. I really enjoyed listening. My question is this. What is the name of the socially responsible index? Okay. Can you see it online?
KLD 400. It might be under MSCI Social Responsible. It might Google it that way or start page it or search it. KLD, maybe it's KLD.
It's MSCI KLD.
Yeah, it's something like that, MSCI KLD. Say it again?
Well, we all have phones, we can do it all.
Yeah, you can just do social responsible index and it'll come up. But it was started, this is an interesting story. It was started by a woman called Amy Dominy. And Amy Dominy and her partner created this index, the one I was telling you about. And she was a speaker and a presenter and a participant in all these social responsible conferences we went to from the very beginning, when there was only 15 of them, till it grew up to 600 people coming. She's very prominent. She's got books out. If you search A.B. Nominee, you're going to see some good books. The latest one she has on is called Thoughts something. I can't think the rest of it. But it's DOMINI. Sounds very
And she
Catholic,
also,
doesn't it?
she also has an investment company that has a mutual fund.
Right, we do have some of our mutual funds. Yes, Domini Equity, Domini Bond, and it's an international.
It's the KLD 400,
Okay.
and it's apparently part of the S&P 500, or it branched off?
Well, it branched off. It took the 500 and reduced it down to 400.
Yeah.
And that was the index they created.
By screening out some egregious companies.
Egregious, I love that. Okay, yeah, and then the longer thing you were talking about is MSCI, and then KLD 400 Social Index.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, all right.
MSCI bought out KLD. And so that's what happened. Yeah, right. MSCI does some great research on social responsibility and all this criteria I talked to you about, along with several other new software companies that are doing wonderful reports. I probably should stop talking, but this new software just does reports. You can take your portfolio, put all the stocks or bonds or mutual funds in that portfolio, and you can get a report that shows this portfolio that you have compared to the S&P 500 index and what it's done in the area of sustainable use of water, sanitation, clean water, all kinds of things, inclusive economies. And you can compare the score of your portfolio, 100 being the top, to the S&P score on that same criteria. So if it's sustainable use of water, there's two portfolios I put in there that were SRIs. One was 91 out of 100, another was 75 out of 100, and the index S&P 500 was 61 out of 100. And you go down through all these zero hunger. So S&P is 69, the other two are mid-80s. So you can see that your portfolio, what it's doing as far as its influence on everything else. All that criteria. Have you heard of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, that the United Nations is promulgating? All right, so what this report is, some of this is based on those SDGs. And they're going through here and telling you how your portfolio compares to some kind of index. You don't have to use the S&P 500 index. You can pick another index, the KLD index, but they wouldn't be comparing, you'd be comparing SRI and SRI. You'd want something that wasn't SRI to compare to. You could get a free trial, but then you got to pay. This is Ethos. It's called Ethos, ESG.com. ET. Was it up there? I think so. Let's see. Light touch. I do this with things.
Well, the trouble is you're looking that way and you're trying to go that way.
Yeah. Now it did that by itself. I didn't do that. There you go.
We got it.
Where'd it go?
Well,
Oh. I don't see it there. Okay. Yeah, I don't see the one I just gave you. Yeah. But the Green America, you know, it's a great one to go to, and you can get a magazine every month that just has wonderful ideas in it. As You Sow has fossil fuel free in that asyousow.org, but it has deforestation free, it has weapons free, it has prison investment free, private prison, all kinds of things on that one site that you can just put your symbol in.
And those are all free, and you don't have to sign them for a trial. Like this software that is more geared for advisors, like people like us, where these are things that are not, that you can just, anybody can go look at this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So you can see the kind of report you can get on your portfolio compared to somebody else's. Or if you don't even want to compare, just your portfolio.
Yeah, we could just do analysis that shows.
Yeah, yeah. If somebody wanted to come in and they wanted to do this, yeah. And the, I'm going to tell you about this. So the SDGs, the United Nations, we went to a workshop on SRI investing and these SDGs. And when you walk into the United Nations, this whole walkway before you go in the entry door of the United Nations building is all these colored pavements with each SDG on it. So if I look here, each one of these stripes, this is all about the SDGs. And here's the colorful example. So one SG is no poverty. Can you read this better than I can? Good health and well-being, love. Oh, that's something else. Maybe you can.
Gender equality. Yeah, some of them are really small.
Okay.
Good health and well-being.
I got it right here. Here it is. Quality education, water and sanitation, clean energy, decent work, industry and innovation, reduced inequalities, sustainable communities, responsible consumption, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace and justice. Those are all the SDGs. Seems like I wrote a note to myself here. Just a minute. Oh, there's another book called Resilient Investor, and it's by Hal Brill and two other authors, but B-R-I-L-L. And he's one of the financial advisors you see every year at the Social Responsible Investing Conference. So lots of these people that started this organization are writing books and creating businesses and doing those kinds of things. Yeah. Anything else for anybody?
The other thing I was just going to mention is that in addition to what we can do as individuals, I think to ask of our church, what are we doing? The bishops in 2021 came out with a statement. I had sent it. It's actually a fairly good document that talks about having the church invest their money in socially responsible, sustainable sources. I didn't agree with all of it. There were a few things that said not to invest in that I would defer with. But anyhow, but I think also that we should ask of our own diocese, you know, where are our investments? Because I don't think this is a mandatory document, but are our diocese investing in socially responsible, just sources, or is it just places to make money? And our own diocese does follow the bishop's plan, I believe, but I don't know exactly what those investments are. So I think that in some of our religious orders, for instance, the Sisters of St. Francis and the Jesuits, not the Jesuits, the St. Joe's Sisters have made tremendous strides in forcing their companies in different places where they invest their retirement funds to make changes. They've done some very powerful things because we have numbers, and that's why I think as a church, we have the power to make changes, to ask.
Right. And I was going to say something about that the sisters, I'm not sure which order, but they were one of the first to do the social responsible investing. Back in the beginning, in the 40s. I don't know if it's 40s. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. Probably the 60s. Because this stuff. Yeah, that's right.
It's my understanding that asking in the past through the years that supposedly every diocese is following national guidelines on moral investments. But it would be very interesting for our task force to ask our CFO of the diocese what are the present, just to find out and see how they respond.
And maybe I can answer, isn't our diocesan task force, that's one of the questions I think we had for the bishop. I don't think we've got an answer yet.
Right. But it might be worth going to the CFO, of the diocese and say, you share with us the process of socially responsible.
This resource up here, iccr.org, that's a religious affiliation. I don't know if it's Catholic Church only, but it might be interesting for you to see, to go to.
I think it's the Interfaith Center for Corporate
I think you're right.
Responsibility,
Yep.
and it's ecumenical and it's kind of global,
Mm-hmm.
like the World Council of Churches and so on.
Yep. Thanks. Oh, the Shelter Force is about sisters. You want to look at that one? So, anything else for anybody?
Any other questions?
All right. Well, we're in the area, so if you have any questions? Thank you.
Certainly a big thank you for taking the time.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was fun. And I love this little thing.
so much. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Yeah, so I'm doing a service here in Syracuse for a year. So I started in August, but I think afterwards I'm probably going to go back to Georgia, which that's where I'm from, yeah. Right on, you were saying the long distance investing, so cool beans. Thank you so much. And thank you.
17 Protestant denominations and Lutheran Rosary and Catholic Relief Service. So it had a triple sponsorship from 47 to 52. But then total of the National Council of Churches and the Church of England. So, you know, we did this under walks to represent what people have to do every day to thrive. And so we symbolic walk to raise money for 25% of it came back to local food pantries, but most of it went to national effort. And then we received schools, irrigation, other child clinics. So I mean, I had four. Most of my work was out in Buffalo raising funds here in upstate New York and 50 counties. We've had 4 overseas trips in 37 years, and places like the China and Malaysia, we helped to fly post in Senate where we were working with this housing ordinance. We got to the Strip and Palestinian refugees, which was our first refugee group that we started working with as soon as Israel was created. Palestinian refugees. Look at your credit unions with banks, I know Bank of America, Chase, and all these other carriers. How are some of the other firms in terms of T or other banks? They must do a better job regulating.
I think so. When I was looking for the pressure around I've been led locally, so community bank and look around. And I looked for diversity on the board. The only one that really came to that was me. But in the rest of them, it was like, what are you talking about? You know, we have these people on our board.
So community bank has done.
Community bank was good, yeah. I thought
If you've had identity theft for 10 or 12 years, like I have, we have. What banks do the best job for you to guard your future identity theft? The big banks are pretty tight on fraud. They have huge problems, but so whether a community bank is Chase or Bank of America or bigger banks, and
That's a good thing to ask them before you use them. If you're in a community credit union,
I just don't know if they can invest the amount of money that's needed to guard against the frauds that people are facing. And these people are so good they can empty out your bank account overnight. Once your Social Security number's out, there's $1,000. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Get on that show. Tell them stuff.
Okay.
You know, we always liked his previous show.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's wrong, but it sure seemed like an inside job.
Meg, is this from the thing back there? Yeah, water.
Very interesting. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. I know, I have a lot of Verizon stock, because that's where I live. So we have an association of Bell retirees. And so I vote they send me every year when we're voting our shares, they'll put in a couple of resolutions and they send it out to all of us and say, vote your share this way.
Yeah.
And it's like to eliminate parachutes, the executive parachutes, somebody's give them millions of dollars when they're firing them.
Yeah.
All of that, things like that, so it's
Does
interesting.
Verizon say, keep the parachutes?
you know how that works.
Yeah.
You see it firsthand.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for attending.
Yeah.
Thank you. Love to Dominic.
Thanks.
I don't think I took any of your questions. That's right.
You managed, you managed.
It's fun. Here, my partner has a Tesla. And you can't do anything like quit or hold it down. That's what I was feeling with this thing.
You just got to be
Well,
very gentle with that.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, so this is, okay?
All right.
You got it, thank you.
You're very welcome.
We will, we will.
Okay, I remember that.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Good night, and again, thank you so much. I did eat it. And now sometimes you get by a certain point and you don't feel like you eat the bottom, you know?
I just cut up an apple, put it in a paper cup, so I ate it in the car.
Oh, that was a good idea.
But I had to feed the cats.
Oh, boy. Hey, take it easy now.